Ladies and gentlemen, 4 million of every Ultimate Epic Battle Simulator 2 Star Wars army is currently gathered at Omaha Beach, D-Day. Across from them is every single modern army in Ultimate Epic Battle Simulator 2. We have the Vietnam Army, the US Army, the Russian Army, the South Korean Army, the Chinese Army, the British Army, the Canadian Army, United Nations soldiers representing all other nations in the world gathered together. And these two forces are going to be clashing. 4 million sci-fi Star Wars units versus 4 million modern soldiers. Both sides have also brought forward some serious firepower, with the Star Wars units bringing up LAAT gunships, AT-AT walkers, and some snail tanks. Meanwhile, the Earth Army has brought forward TOS systems, BTRs, as well as some nuclear missile systems.
Real quick, huge thank you to Instant Gaming for sponsoring this video. They have literally the best deals in gaming. I use it all the time. If you like Star Wars games, Lego Star Wars for $2. Star Wars Battlefront 2 for $9. One of my favorite Star Wars games, Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, $1.70. If you want to play the Star Wars Galaxy at War mod, Men of War Assault Squad 2, $3. Extremely popular games can be up to 99% off. Link in the description below. Thank you to Instant Gaming for sponsoring the channel. Thank you guys for watching. Let's get into the video.
Alright boyos, 4 milli versus 4 milli. Let's go ahead and press start right here and check out what goes down. Since this is such a large battlefield, we are going to start things off in slow-mo here. We have Jedi Knights charging forward against some of these guerrilla soldiers over this way. We've also got some of those snail tanks firing out some high explosive rounds against the enemy, so we should have good batches of them over here exploding from those impacts. And these guys are just firing their machine guns willy-nilly, just spamming fire out this way. I mean, it's pretty hard to miss all of those Jedi, but I will say the Jedi should be able to absorb a lot of these shots and deflect a lot of the shots as they are heavily armored in the game system to resist those shots and reflect them backwards. That's kind of how their Jedi deflect works in this game in particular. Now over here we do have some of those Rebel Hoth troopers for the Star Wars units over here. They've got the A280s, which are very, very powerful laser rifles, at least in Star Wars Battlefront 2 and in regular Star Wars lore. They're extremely powerful rifles. Hopefully we see some good action with these guys as they square up against some of these Vietnamese soldiers here with their SKSs, Russian purchased SKSs, or Russian donated, not totally sure. We've also got the TOS systems spamming out missiles. Look at that. Those should have some very good impacts, although the aim on this one is kind of going for the cliffs where there's less Star Wars units, so maybe that batch won't do too well. But in the middle here, look at all of those missiles soaring through the skies. They are going to absolutely devastate the boyos over here. We've got more Hoth Rebel troopers. Let's see if we have anything else around this area. Okay, there's B1 battle droids over here. Whole slew of them over this way, dying, dropping to the floor, dead from TOS fire, I'm pretty sure. We've also got the LAATs up in the sky, firing away some HE shots back towards those Earth units on the opposite side here. So we do have some of the UN peacekeepers. These guys have some, those are M72 laws, I think? Am I right? Maybe someone who has better weapons knowledge than me? Let me know in the comment section below, but that's what it looks like to me. B1 battle droids over here just solidly pushing forward with their E5 rifles. Of course, in further back lines, we have more variety in troopers. Like back here, we have our Stormtroopers with their E11s. Over this way, we've got Mandalorians with their Mandalorian pistols. I don't know their exact name in the Star Wars universe, but I just call them the Mandalorian pistols. Then we've got some DC-15A troopers with scopes on them from the 2nd Airborne of the 7th Sky Battalion here coming forward as well. Have any of the Jedi matched up against these enemies? Because they're actually the only melee unit in the battlefield. And yes, they have. Let's get out of slow-mo and go full speed ahead as these Jedi just push through deeply into this area. Look at that. Wow, okay, so now these guerrilla soldiers over here are kind of on the run backwards as those Jedi come forward. There's a lot of them, but backing them up should be some different variety of troopers. Yep, back here we've got some Russian army soldiers coming forward with some light machine guns. There's even more of them back here. This must be the ghillie suit snipers, yes, because they are firing from all the way across the map. We've got ghillie suit snipers, so these guys have incredible range on their weapons. Very, very powerful unit, and they've been firing this whole time, so I bet they are responsible for a lot of the modern army kills right now. And both sides are actually relatively in the same boat. These are some of the Ukrainian soldiers running forward with Team 1, which I believe to be the modern army, having 460,000 kills so far, and Team 2, which is the Star Wars army, I believe, having 449,000, now 50,000 kills. So they're both neck and neck on their kill counts right now. Of course, the actual number of troopers remaining is a little bit less than that. They both started with 4 million, but the explosive fire doesn't always count as a kill. So we have 2.95 million remaining modern army soldiers and 3 million remaining Star Wars units over here. You can see that the explosive fire is just unbelievable on this side of the battlefield with so many lats spamming out HE fire. We got all those bazooka units over here also firing lighter rounds of high explosive. They're a smaller explosion caliber, but still very devastating. AT-ATs over here coming on forward. A number of them are dead. You can tell the ones that are dead because their animation is just them literally losing their head, which is kind of funny. But there's still a decent number of them over here coming on forward, marching the good march. And then we've got the snail tanks over this way, which, yeah, a lot of these guys are still alive too, still firing outwards at the enemy. Two very different fighting styles here. Definitely the Star Wars units are a little bit more close quarters with, first of all, their Jedi and their lightsabers being a very close quarters unit, just hand-to-hand combat basically. But then we also have like the E5 and the E11 being basically SMGs, so they're going to be very, very close. Meanwhile, the A280 and the DC-15A are a bit more of distance weapons. You can see the A280 here spamming out fire at a distance at the oncoming enemies across the way here. In terms of terrain, it's pretty even on both sides since they're both going to be clashing with the beach sort of off to the side. Neither side has the defender's advantage on this D-Day map today. So there shouldn't be too much difference in terrain, but in certain areas, you know, you might have the high ground versus the low ground and things like that. And we all know from Revenge of the Sith how that tends to go. Here are the TOS systems coming forward. These are probably the most powerful unit for the modern Earth armies. These guys spam out missiles like nobody's business. So the quicker that the Star Wars units can kill these TOS systems, the better. Now, you might think the nuclear missile systems are the best. I don't even see them right now. Are there any even still alive? I don't know. They're back here. I think they're all dead. Yeah, they're all dead. So, yeah, nuclear missile systems, very, very weak armor, so even those stray shots manage to just kill them from a distance, but on top of that, they take a really long time to fire, and they're not the biggest of nukes. They're kind of a small, lighter nuke, I guess you could say, only a few megatons, so they're not the greatest in this game. The TOS system's definitely the GOAT. BTRs are pretty good. They do more so machine gun fire and things like that in this game. Burst Flechetta. You can change up what type of top weapon they have actually, and we went with Burst Flechetta in this one. But the TOS is really the star of the show for the Earth armies here. Right now, Earth Army has 1.46 million kills, and the Star Wars armies have 1.16 million kills. So big difference right there in the kill count. Although I will say, looks like the actual total number of soldiers remaining on both sides is a little bit more neck and neck. 2.1 million remaining of the Earth Army units and 1.87 million remaining Star Wars units. So only like 150,000 now total difference in units remaining. So that's a little bit closer than the actual kill counts, probably because the Star Wars units might have more explosive weapons given their number of LAATs and things like that, although I think all the LAATs are dead. Most of the AT-ATs are dead. The dwarf spiders, or these aren't dwarf spiders, they're snail tanks. snail tanks might all be dead as well, to be honest with you. So those might be the end of the vehicles for the Star Wars armies. Might not be seeing many more of those going in. Here we go, some Mandalorians pushing forward along with the rebel units over this way. They're going neck and neck with, it looks like, some of those Ukrainian soldiers over this way. And I think they're supported by some of these bazooka troopers from the UN. There's also some US riflemen in here. I haven't seen them yet, but it's a very large battlefield, of course, and the ghillie suit snipers way back there still firing away. Here are some of those Vietnamese soldiers firing as well, and down further below here are some of those Russian army PKM soldiers spamming some light machine gun fire into the remainder of the Jedi. The Jedi are kind of toasted at this point. There's not too many of them remaining, but we still have a lot of 2nd Airborne troopers with their DC-15As. These are, I believe, DC-15As, not DC-15Xs, based on the weapon design, but they do have the scope of a DC-15X on them. However, it's just a modified DC-15A, I believe. There we go, TOS systems still spamming that missile fire inward. Let's see these land. Oh, devastating effect against the Clone Trooper army right there. Really pretty brutal stuff. They need to knock out those TOS systems big time. Alright, the Star Wars units are starting to lag behind, I will say. 850,000 of them remaining versus 1.4 million remaining modern army soldiers. Now, the problem is that the Star Wars armor is really built to fight against Star Wars weapons. Blaster fire is meant to be deflected by the armor or just sort of absorb the charge, versus a bullet is going to kind of tear through that type of armor. At least that's what a lot of the Star Wars analysis videos I've watched on YouTube have told me about bullets versus Star Wars armor. So in theory, this armor might actually work against some of the concussive blasts from the TOS system and things like that, and from some of those rockets. However, against the bullets that the modern US Army and Russian Army, etc., is using, it's just going to tear through this armor. Meanwhile, the blaster rifles, I don't really know how they'd interact with some of the modern Earth Army armor, like a ballistics vest. It might be able to kind of absorb blaster fire. I feel like in Star Wars we've seen like stuff deflecting blaster fire that's just, you know, a heavy absorbive plate. So I think that the Earth armies actually kind of have the edge in weaponry here, weirdly enough. I will say the TOS systems, those boys, which most of them are dead now, there's still a few though moving forward, those boys are just devastating to the Star Wars army. Actually, wow, the Star Wars units are starting to seriously peter out here. Look at that. 770,000 modern units remaining, only 130,000 Star Wars units remain. Just really quickly, the disassembling of the Star Wars units. They went from neck and neck for over half of the battle. I mean, it was basically 4 million versus 4 million, a little bit more. It was like 4.2 versus 4.2 million. And they were neck and neck until like 1.2 million versus 1 million soldiers, I think, was where we got to. And then it just rock bottomed for the Star Wars units, with only now 50,000 Star Wars units remaining on the battlefield. They're getting absolutely cooked by the modern armies here, who still have 600,000 troopers left alive. This battle was neck and neck, and then all of a sudden it turned horribly in favor of the Earth armies, and the Star Wars armies are getting absolutely rocked. That's crazy. I wonder what kind of broke. It might have been, honestly, the Jedi units might have been able to keep alive a lot of the background units because they deflected so much of the fire, and that might have been their big advantage. And then once we saw that kind of mass casualty of the Jedi lightsaber units, the rest of them just started to melt away because the Earth armies were able to destroy them so wholeheartedly. I will say, though, the Star Wars armies did not go down without a fight. I mean, they've depleted the enemy numbers heavily at this point, with only 7,000 soldiers remaining. There's only 500,000 modern army units remaining at this point in time as well. So the Star Wars armies have done a nice job of keeping them at bay. even when they were depleting like crazy, they were still getting a solid number of kills, and they still are getting a solid number of kills right now as we're speaking. 490,000 now remaining Earth Army units. So the Star Wars units, nothing to scoff at. Nothing to be ashamed of. They did a great job here, and they went neck and neck nearly the entire time, but I really do think once the vast majority of the Jedi died, and we do still have some Jedi over here surviving with some Mandalorians and clone troopers, but once the Jedi kind of all went to the wayside, the Earth Army units were able to do a lot more. There's some of those ghillie suit snipers going forward, dying, as they do kind of the final charge here and exhaust the last 2,000 now Star Wars units who are all kind of hiding on this cliffside. They're doing a nice, decent little last stand here, though. Look at that. The enemy coming up over the rocks, firing downwards, and the Star Wars units are knocking a lot of them down. Look at the body piles dropping down here. That's a lot. That is quite a number. And we still have some lightsaber units going up there trying to distract, but the bullets are just tearing through them now as the final now 870 remaining Star Wars units get slowly choked out by the enemy assault. Pretty crazy. We haven't done a massive just smashing of two armies against each other in quite a while here. They're a lot quicker battles. They're a lot more decisive, I will say, but they are pretty fun to do every so often. I do prefer Ultimate Epic Battle Simulator 2 for defensive battles. I think it's a lot more fun to do defensive battles in this game in particular. It's built a bit better for that, but every once in a while, just having one massive clash can be very, very satisfying, to say the very least. Only 150 Star Wars units remaining. They are lasting till the bitter end here. Truly a last stand here. They're trying to counterattack up this hillside, but just not really amounting to too much. They're giving it their all, though. We can say that for sure. 15 now of them remaining, and 464,000 Earth Army units remaining. So, all in all, a fairly close battle between the two armies, but no cigar at the end of the day. 20 remaining Star Wars units on the battlefield. They're going down. I don't even know where the last 13 now, I think, remain. It might be glitched into rocks, to be completely honest, but 464,000 modern army units remain, and 13 Star Wars units are hiding somewhere on the map, not dying at this point in time. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Check out my book, Army Men, Blight of the Empire. It's available on Amazon now if you're interested, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.
I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Be sure to click that subscribe button for more content, and hit the notification bell if you'd like to be alerted to whenever I live stream or upload. Thanks so much.